Have you ever wondered why the greatest minds in human history seem to possess almost supernatural clarity? Pythagoras, Plato, Socrates. These weren't just philosophers sitting around debating ideas. They were men who discovered something profound about the human mind, something that modern science is only now beginning to understand. They practiced sexual restraint, not because of religion, not because of morality, but because they knew a secret. They understood that sexual energy, when preserved, transforms into something far more powerful: mental clarity, creative genius, spiritual awakening. Today, we're going to explore what ancient Greek philosophers discovered about the connection between sexual energy and the mind, and why modern neuroscience confirms they were absolutely right. Let's start with Pythagoras, one of the most mysterious figures in ancient philosophy. Most people know him for his mathematical theorem, but that's just the surface. Pythagoras founded a secret school in southern Italy around 530 BCE, and the first rule of his school was absolute sexual restraint for his inner circle of students. Why? Because Pythagoras believed that sexual energy was divine fire. He taught that this energy could be transmuted into higher consciousness. His students, who practiced retention, reported something extraordinary: enhanced mathematical intuition, the ability to solve complex problems in their sleep, visions of geometric truths that seemed to come from another realm. Modern neuroscience would call this increased activity in the prefrontal cortex and enhanced neuroplasticity. But Pythagoras called it unlocking the divine mind. His school produced some of the greatest mathematical minds of antiquity, and they all followed this one practice. Then we have Plato, perhaps the most influential philosopher in Western history. In his dialogues, Plato writes extensively about the concept of enkrateia, which means self-mastery or self-control. And at the center of this concept was the mastery of sexual desire. Plato divided the human soul into three parts: the rational mind, the spirited emotions, and the appetites. He taught that true wisdom only emerges when the rational mind controls the lower appetites. Sexual desire, according to Plato, was the most powerful of all appetites. Master it, and you master yourself. But here's what's fascinating. Plato didn't just theorize about this, he practiced it. Historical accounts suggest that Plato remained celibate for most of his life, dedicating his sexual energy to philosophical contemplation. His academy in Athens became the Harvard of the ancient world, and the training there included strict discipline over physical desires. The result? Some of the most profound philosophical insights ever recorded. Ideas about reality, justice, and the nature of knowledge that we still study today, over 2,000 years later. Now let's talk about Socrates, the father of Western philosophy. Socrates was famous for his incredible mental discipline. But what most people don't know is that this discipline extended to his sexual life as well. There's a famous story about Socrates and Alcibiades, one of the most beautiful and seductive men in Athens. Alcibiades attempted to seduce Socrates, spending an entire night with him. But Socrates, despite the temptation, maintained complete restraint. Not out of fear or moral judgment, but out of philosophical principle. Socrates believed that the philosopher must be master of all physical desires. He taught that sexual energy, when retained, becomes spiritual power. This power manifests as clarity of thought, strength of character, and the ability to pursue truth without distraction. His students reported that Socrates possessed an almost supernatural presence. He could stand in meditation for hours without moving. He could endure physical hardship that would break other men, and his mind was so sharp that he could dismantle any argument with simple questions. Modern psychology calls this level of self-mastery executive function and impulse control. But Socrates called it living in accordance with the soul, and he believed sexual restraint was the foundation. Here's where it gets really interesting. Modern science is now confirming what these ancient philosophers knew intuitively. When you practice sexual restraint, several profound changes occur in your brain and body. First, testosterone levels increase. Studies show that after 7 days of abstinence, testosterone can spike by up to 45%. Higher testosterone means better focus, increased confidence, and enhanced cognitive function. This is exactly what Pythagoras and his students were experiencing. Second, dopamine regulation improves. In our modern world, constant sexual stimulation through pornography and frequent ejaculation creates dopamine desensitization. Your brain's reward system becomes numb. But when you practice retention, dopamine receptors begin to recover. Suddenly, normal activities feel more rewarding. Your mind becomes sharper. Your motivation increases. Third, neuroplasticity enhances. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for decision-making and self-control, actually strengthens. Brain scans show increased gray matter density in men who practice extended periods of sexual restraint. This is the same region that ancient philosophers were unknowingly training. Fourth, creative energy surges. Psychologists call this sublimation, redirecting sexual energy into creative pursuits. Sigmund Freud, despite his other theories, got this one right. The greatest artists, scientists, and thinkers throughout history often practiced periods of celibacy during their most productive phases. So how can you apply this ancient wisdom in your modern life? The Greek philosophers give us a clear roadmap, and contemporary science validates every step. Start with the fundamentals. Recognize that sexual energy is not something to be suppressed or shamed. It's powerful life force that can be directed. The philosophers didn't hate sexuality. They respected it so much that they refused to waste it. Practice conscious transmutation. When you feel sexual urges, don't fight them with willpower alone. Redirect that energy into something productive. Exercise, creative work, deep study, meditation. This is what Plato meant by letting the rational mind guide the appetites. Develop a philosophical practice. The Greeks didn't just abstain from sex randomly. It was part of a larger philosophical life. They meditated, they studied, they engaged in meaningful conversations. They pursued truth and wisdom. Sexual restraint was one tool in a complete system of self-development. Set intentional periods of practice. You don't need to be celibate forever. Even Pythagoras had different levels of commitment for different students. But try 30 days, 90 days. See what happens to your mental clarity, your creativity, your sense of purpose. Track the changes. Journal your experiences. The ancient philosophers discovered something that our modern world has forgotten. Sexual energy is creative energy, spiritual energy, mental energy. When you learn to conserve and redirect it, you tap into a power that most people never access. The ancient Greek philosophers understood something profound about human nature. They knew that the mind and body are not separate. They knew that sexual energy is life energy, and they knew that most people squander this energy without ever realizing its potential. Pythagoras created a school of genius by teaching his students to conserve their vital force. Plato developed a philosophy of self-mastery that emphasized control over the appetites. Socrates demonstrated supernatural levels of mental discipline through his practice of restraint.
And modern science now confirms that everything they taught was based on biological reality. You have access to the same power they had, the same energy, the same potential for transformation. The question is whether you're willing to practice what they practiced, whether you're willing to go against modern culture and reclaim your vital energy. This isn't about moral judgment or religious rules. This is about practical philosophy. This is about optimizing your mind and body for peak performance. The Greeks weren't monks hiding from the world. They were warriors, leaders, and thinkers who wanted every possible advantage in life. So here's your challenge. Try it for 30 days. Practice sexual restraint with conscious intention. Journal what you notice. Pay attention to your mental clarity, your energy levels, your creativity, your sense of purpose. See if the ancient philosophers were right. And if you want to learn more about how to apply ancient wisdom to modern life, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Hit that like button if this video gave you a new perspective. And drop a comment below telling me what ancient philosophy topic you want me to cover next. I read every single comment. The wisdom of the ancients is waiting for you. The question is whether you're ready to claim it.